Yeah, I'm Mel. I do business development right now. I've done that for about 6 years. Before that, I was a geologist. That's a long story. But over these last years, I've realized more and more all the people that I've worked with. Right now, Congregate does multi-platform publishing, so anything from web, mobile, PC, console. Humble Bundle, of course, mainly mobile, PC, console. But in all of these, I started making these terrible jokes, which ended up being kind of true that, publishers and developers, partnerships, they're really like dating, especially modern dating. People will ghost you. People will, trying to figure out some matchmaking. Sometimes you break up. Sometimes people run from you. It's very weird. So this is where this talk came from. If you've seen any of my talks before, I give weird talks. Generally, I try to make them as useful as possible. I mentioned Congregate once. It's probably going to be the last time I mention it. This is just like tips and tricks, things to remember, and hopefully you'll take something away from it. Cool. So here's the definition of ghosting. It came around about the 2015 era, which I also believe is when a lot of these dating apps started getting really big, the left, right, swipey ones, you know the ones. And so it came about of when somebody cuts off contact with you. So this can happen, dating, even friends, therapists, anytime you might get a little bit awkward, and it's like, well, I'd rather just not ever deal with it ever again. So it's happened to me plenty with developers. It's happened to plenty of developers with publishers. And a lot of times it's not coming out of a place of malice. It's just a misunderstanding, and so we'll get into that. Something to remember too, on my talks, I use really silly images because it really helps you remember them. My last 2 talks had kitten pictures, but then I started getting known as a cat lady, so I decided to get rid of that. They are all romantic comedy movies, so enjoy. So yeah, this is this talk. It's really going over how you meet people, how you get involved with figuring out who they are, what they do, what you're looking for in that relationship, and then kind of what to do if things go terribly wrong. And then hopefully they don't, and you can work together again. Great, so first off, I'm going to go over 2 quick slides on what publisher relationships used to be and what they are now. In the past, they really were physical publishing, market-driven. If suddenly the market changed, the publisher could just, cut off the contract and it was over and you had to go work on something else because the market didn't want it. You didn't really know what you were getting out of that relationship. And I'm thinking this is like maybe 10 years ago. And so a lot of times you had to give up the IP. It was really unfair. It's slowly gotten better. I put the as good as it gets because no, it's not yet. I still think it can be better. We can be better. Right now, a lot of stuff is digital focused. Even on consoles, we're all starting to move towards the digital app stores. So we can focus a little bit less on the physical publishing. There's still a bit of a market, but I'm not going to go over that. It's still a lot of unknowns. You don't really know what you're getting. You're meeting a lot of these publishers, and a lot of them are brand new. I can't tell you how much the publisher market has exploded in the last, say, 2 years even. Every successful indie is starting to do publishing, and I think that's great. They understand the needs of the different publisher or the different developers, but it's still market-driven. It still might be, you're starting a game, and 2 years later, that entire genre might be out of style, just temporarily. So really, really difficult. Also, you get to keep your IP now, and if somebody asks for it, tell them no. Cool. So Meetcute is one of my favorite terms. It's from the 40s. It's when 2 characters meet in a movie, and it's an adorable meeting. So this is just to go over, like, how do you meet people? Where do you find them? This actually goes in order of what I think is the most useful to kind of the least. And it's not to bag on any of these. It's just that having those face-to-face interactions or having another human being introduce you is really the best way. A lot of relationships really do start when people, meet in person, just happen to be at the same place with their friends of friends. So yeah, if your friends have worked with a publisher, ask them. Other things, local meetups, things like that. So big fan of women in gaming. A lot of cities have specific meetups, regions. So thank you for already being here. You're already, ahead of the curve. Something to remember is that, some people don't have that opportunity, so you might need to go to them. I particularly try to go to other countries where it might be hard to get visas here. It's something that you really need to remember as a publisher. The last two are there's speed dating, and not even joking. It's like tables, like 2 minutes per, ding the bell, move next. And it's really, it feels a little embarrassing, and it's all right. But again, like you just don't get that like extra minutes to talk and find out, oh, we have these mutual interests in games and different things. Same with the dev matching sites. They're just, they feel very sterile, so it's hard to get that human interaction. All right, so if you're hosting an event, be you a publisher or developer, here's just some quick tips. Setting up a code of conduct. I'm going to post these slides later. There's a link to a generic open source code of conduct if you need one. Always provide people a way to actually access that and people to talk to at the event. Something huge to remember, and you know, this doesn't affect me as much anymore, but I have friends who happen to be under 21 that are great developers, and they come to GDC and every single event is at a bar. So they're never getting to go. So you'll find these roaming packs of 20-year-olds trying to find something to do at nighttime during GDC. So it's really, really useful to do an event that can be, you know, potentially both. Another thing, you know, if you're going to serve alcohol, that's totally fine, but provide other stuff. Give people water, give people sodas. You know, don't overly encourage it. I'm a little wary on the swag of, you know, like shot glasses, things like that. It kind of gives a weird feeling for the industry. And avoid loud music. Seriously, just like you can do some light classical or something, but when you turn up that music, no one's going to talk. No one's going to want to talk to you. And I can't say I've ever done a deal when there's like laser lights and uns. So like, just try to avoid that. When you're going to the events, I mean, you have to understand that you are meeting so many new people. I've done the same pitch I don't know how many times, and I have to remember that, oh, this is new to them. They might not know these things. So consider it new. Consider, like, you know, every person is a brand new person. They're amazing. So just go with it. Other things, like I'm saying at these parties, for every glass you drink of one thing, please drink a glass of water. Seriously. And take notes. My personal thing is every single time I get home, I go through the notes that I have and I fill them out, because there's going to be other things that you remember. But 3 days later, you are not going to remember anything. So yeah, when I put the 50 first dates, it's because every single interaction always feels new. It can be awkward, but this socialization thing, this is the squishy feelings thing. You have to, it's a skill. It really is. You will get better at it. I know it's hard, but it will get better. This one, personal experience of seeing this. I think it's been enough years that nobody will remember this happening, but I witnessed a poor developer who I think had just turned 21, not in a good place, and I had to, at an event, nobody was taking responsibility, so I took his phone and found the last people he had called, which happened to be his parents who lived in town, and I got him in a cab to go home. That's embarrassing. You don't want to be that person. But if you are that person, if that does happen, you know, own it. You need to just, I got an email a couple days later that was a very polite apology, and actually a very grateful apology. So that's actually still a good relationship with that developer. So it's just something that might happen. And again, drink water. We're all going to be at the aquarium tonight, so hopefully that will remind you as well. All right, so here's the part where you like start getting like little tips and things that you might remember. So the 3-day rule, you know, you meet somebody awesome and you shouldn't text them for 3 days. You don't want to seem too overeager. It's similar with publishers, but not for the same reason. After a conference, I am guaranteed to get at least 50, 80, 100 emails a day for like a week. And I'm usually trying to start at the bottom, work my way up, but a lot of times stuff comes up on the top, and that's the stuff that I'm going to see and I'm going to respond to. So if you wait 3 days, it's going to be at that top of that pile, and I'll probably see it. So it's just a useful thing to do. The other thing is when you're sending these, make your subject line super useful. Really just like your development studio name, my development studio name, so you can see in your own inbox who you emailed, game name, and then what you're looking for, whether it says, hey, publishing stuff or contract stuff, something like this is just the easiest way. And then if you're trying to figure out where that email is, you type, 2 search words in, and bam, it's at the top of the list. Keep it to one email chain. Please don't start 5. Please don't, there's a term called like double dipping, and that's basically you emailed me, you emailed another business developer, you emailed a producer, and none of us know that these conversations are going on. So it gets really complicated, and it also starts to feel like you're using a lot of time without being considerate. So just keep that in mind. With the emails, give context. Like if we met at the aquarium party, just mention that, and that'll help, spark somebody's memory and be like, oh, I do remember this person. We talked about this. And really ask as many questions as possible. This is a relationship. You want to know what you're going to get out of it, what they're getting out of it. So here's the slide, what happens. Basically, you email, no response. I'd really give it around like 4 days to a week, especially if there's like a weekend involved. People take weekend trips. So I recommend around 7 days. Just follow up on that same email chain and just say, hey, just pinging to see, if you have any questions on what I emailed before, anything like that. The next time you can email again, see if there's anybody else at the company, and just CC them on. The first person might be on vacation, something might be happening, so put them on. And if you have timelines, like, hey, we need to make a decision on this by the end of the month, put that in there. Like, we're listening. It's just that there's, could be 100 emails, 300 emails. I've sat at 300 emails while knocking down 50 down a day for 2 weeks before, and it's terrifying that I'm letting people down. So it may not be intentional. If it's, three emails and you're still not getting a reply, it still may not be intentional, but it's coming off that way. So you might want to, either try reaching out to somebody else, or to honestly like leaving it at a break, find something to email them about, like, oh, hey, we just had a company announcement. Oh, hey, we just got picked up by this article. There's another good way to spark that conversation that is exciting and not making the person feel like we're failing everything. So yeah, keep it positive. So think just quick things to remember. People go through a lot of staff, so just check with somebody else to see if that person's still working there. Maybe see if you can get an internal ping, or other thing is regional stuff. I can't tell you enough how smart it is to remember regional differences. Is it, say, the middle of July in Germany? They're probably on holiday for the whole month. Just forget it. Is it like January in China? They're probably on holiday for the whole month. Like, there's different regional holidays that you have to remember that you're going to get delays, and not everybody remembers to set their out of office message. All right, so when you're considering your publishing partner, I put in meet the parents because it's just a smart thing to do. You meet the publishing family. That publisher probably already has a record and has worked with other people. You can either reach out to them yourselves, or honestly ask the publisher. They should be comfortable enough to introduce you to somebody that they have worked with in the past. You can ask them what they've done well, what they've done badly. You can just make sure that, they provide those things that, they've told you that they provide. Well, ask somebody else, like make sure their marketing team's up to par, and such. And then if you're local enough, or it's possible, say, during a conference, plan a studio visit. If you're a publisher, it's a great thing. It shows your interest. It shows, you want to see who's on the team, who's going to work day to day. And especially if you're a developer and you can do it, go to that publisher's, actually seeing who you're going to work with every single day is so smart. So 10 things I hate about you. I put this one together really quickly on purpose, because this is something that you need to understand in your needs, what's going to be a deal breaker. Things like this are going to be, termination clauses are a big one that people always come up with. If things go really badly, what's going to happen? Do you get to keep on publishing your game? Are there any IP restrictions? If you need physical publishing, make sure you check, does that publisher do this or not? Are they willing to? There's just so much that these are the ones that, pick and choose a couple of these. Be a little flexible where you can, but know your stopping points. So in the day-to-day stuff, when I put the because I said so, again, like the one before, this is actually the opposite. This is a partnership. This is a two-way street. Don't feel like you need to be bossed around, but do ask for, reasoning behind decisions. Like, people should be definitely willing to give reasons, especially, say, in mobile, you're going to have analytics. People will have reports. When it comes to reports, you can either put this in the contract or establish it beforehand. Do you want a monthly marketing report? Cool. Do you want, access to other analytics? That's cool too. Just make sure you specify it. Make sure they're willing to do this. If they're not, keep looking. And then, a lot of stuff is upon mutual decision. This is a partnership. You want to make sure that you feel equal in this relationship. All right. So the clueless side, what don't you do? This one's just my personal pet peeve. Don't ask me if I work in marketing or accounting or something like that. Don't be rude to people. It's just common sense. That's just being thoughtful. Other things, don't run away from people. I've had developers accidentally ghost me, and then I've seen them at like 5 conferences, and each time I've seen them like duck behind stuff, almost literally hide under a table. And I'm not that scary, I promise. So it's okay. Like, if you went with another publisher, that's okay. Like, I know most of the other publishers, so it's not a problem. Like, really, especially a lot of games come out of ideas number 2, 3, 4, and onwards. So don't be embarrassed. Just keep going. When you go into a meeting, please be prepared. You wouldn't go on a date to a fancy cocktail restaurant wearing like khaki shorts. So go to a meeting knowing which company you're meeting with, the name of the person you're meeting with. I can't tell you how many times I've been called Melanie, Melissa, Matilda. It's just Mel. And then the last thing is the duplicate game pitches. This one is just comes up so much. That happens a lot. Figuring out, like, even at conferences, when you schedule a meeting, only schedule a meeting with one person. You can ask that both people join, but it makes it very difficult with some of these matching systems. You might get 3 meetings with the same company. Be polite, cancel one, and stick with one meeting. It's really appreciated. This one, how to be single. It's okay not to have a publisher. On mobile, I highly recommend it because of the sheer amount of work it takes to handle the app stores, the marketing. I had to put this in tiny text because there's so much like localization, QA on so many devices. So, mobile, it's a difficult market. PC is the same thing. You can get by on your own, but you need to know, are you up for the challenge? There's other service providers that do some of these things. You can find a porting house or a localization house. But you have to be prepared. If you want, some of that extra marketing help, figure out what you want and see if one of the publishers can provide it. So when things go wrong, hopefully you've, set up a good contract, you set up a good relationship, you know what to expect. So when things, maybe the game's not going to, be as big as you hope for, maybe you need a little more funding, figure out ways to make that happen. It's really a communication process. The biggest thing I can say is try not to badmouth other developers and publishers. And I'm sure most of you had this happen. If you have, that person's always going to be standing right behind you at the party, and then you're going to hate yourself. So don't do that. But do communicate. It's good that developers do talk about, what's fair in the industry and how to get by. And then do a postmortem, internally, externally. If you want to do it with the publisher, fine. If not, that's okay. Figure out what went right and what went wrong. And that's the exact same thing on this. When things go right, do a postmortem, because even when things go fantastic, there's things that could have been done better. And you want to identify those and make sure they know. Especially for publishers, we want to know what we're not doing well so we can do it better. It's just not a hard question there. And then you do want to celebrate, like, enjoy your victories. And then the last thing, if you want to mention us, that'd be so great. I've seen the articles where it's like, we had a great game and it's wonderful. And it's like, and you did it all on your own? Yeah. It's like, no. So we have a lot of, like, producers work really hard to help. And, so much work goes into a game. So even just a mention of, like, and hey, they were, like, really nice and very supportive. So appreciated. Cool. So I think I hopefully got a little bit under time. Yeah. I talk really fast. I'm sorry. But yeah, I actually won't be outside right directly after this. I will be after the next panel, which you should also watch on indie publishers and pitching. Drink some water, be smart, and I'll take some questions.
Great talk, first of all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I come from a science background myself, so I'm really interested and curious as to what that transition was like for you, coming from geology or environmental science and transitioning into the game world.
Sure. So I was staff scientist too for an environmental remediology company. So I was working on government sites cleaning up like trichloroethylene. I decided not to work around cancer-causing chemicals anymore. So I quit, and I actually have a background in computer science and knew a little bit of Linux. And so my roommate told me to please get off the couch and do something. So he got me a small contract gig with Humble Bundle, and we were about 7 people back then. And I just left there a couple years ago, and so moved through every single thing. And I can do producing now, customer support, QA. It was a really good kind of holistic experience. I figured out that I'm marginally or okay at talking to people and understanding, what developers are looking for and needing. And so, yeah, business development ended up being the place for me. But the industry has been incredibly welcoming. Yeah, I think you guys are all in it. It's great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Please, let's give a big round of applause again to Mel.
Thank you.